up. So just be mindful it's not quite a flip-flop compatible. Quite a flip-flop compatible flip. I'm here today at Thors Well along the Oregon coast. It's one of the most unique formations around the coastline here. It's this 20-foot deep hole where the ocean sucks in and spurts out. And there's another spout as well. So I'm going to take you down there and check it out.
Oh, that was awesome.
And another neat formation is the Spouting Horn right behind me. You can see that it sprays up and sprays water up to 20 feet up in the air. It's really pretty cool depending on the wave action. The best time to come here is during high tide or during a roaring storm. You can really get some spectacular action. Whoa, yeah! Out of these formations. So it's on a remote part of the Oregon coast, but it's well worth checking out. Now, Thors Well is out behind me here where you can see the wave action splashing up over there, but to really actually see into the well, you have to walk over and look down. Now note that the best time is high tide. It's was at 5.5 feet right now in the morning. Use one of your tide apps to check that out. But if you really want to see, let me change exposure. There we go. You want to see that action in the well, know that if you're standing out there and the well's burbling up and down, there's no way you're not going to get soaked. So you definitely have to watch out for this, because around the Oregon coast there are things that are called sneaker waves. And what these waves do is you've got the regular wave action, it seems totally normal. Then out of this blue, they call them rogue waves scientifically, it just starts to push and push and push. And even though I'm standing way away from the wave, every so often you'll get a wave that just comes up and crazy washes over things. So you do have to be very mindful and careful around the coast here. Also, there are logs that churn in the ocean, and not like little tiny things. I mean 10-foot diameter trees or 6-foot diameter trees that are incredibly dangerous. So it is something that when you're coming up and down the Oregon coast is very beautiful, but you do have to be very mindful about your surroundings and be careful. So it's a little bit of a beauty and a beast experience. Now the fun part of coming into these locations is you might possibly get wet. You can see this undercut area, and as the wave action comes in, it splashes up. And more than once, where I'm standing, the water is completely churned over. So definitely do be careful. This basaltic rock, boy, if you fall on it, it'll shred you up. So just be mindful. It's not quite a flip-flop compatible flip. Woo! And there we go. I am wet. Oh yeah, shred you up. So just be mindful, it's not quite a flip-flop compatible wave. And there we go, I am wet.
Okay, let's go.
Oh yeah.
Dude, that was so cute.
Well.
Okay, we gotta go.
Oh, that was awesome, completely soaked. Good thing my phone and camera are waterproof here, but sometimes that is a risk, blah, 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 and Cameron. So, of course, I didn't think ahead that my pants would get soaked, and now I've got to drive around with wet jeans, but all part of the risk of adventuring. The Oregon coast is actually quite adventurous. As you can see, I'm still spitting out salt, and my pants are kind of soaked, or really soaked, completely salty. Just be aware that sometimes the waves will catch you, and make sure you're in a position that if a big wave hits you, you don't get sucked in. It's beautiful, but definitely dangerous, and occasionally you might get a little moist. As you can see, this is what I was talking about. This log here is huge, and I'm way above the tide. The tide's at about 5 feet at the moment, and this log, I don't know how many thousand pounds this thing is, but I mean massive. So the waves have literally carried the log right up onto the rocks and no problem. So even though this log is 1,000+ pounds or whatever it is, I don't even know, as soon as the water comes and hits this log, the log still floats and it'll start to move around. So even though it's really neat to look at, if the water is anywhere near these things, you do not want to be up here, because it'll come up, it'll start rolling around, and if you get pinned under it, ugh. But it adds a lot to the scenery. There's plenty of logs around here. I'll spin around and show you, just to see how far these logs get pushed up by the ocean. As you travel along on the Oregon coast, you can see just endless basaltic rock that make these wonderful shapes, and spouts and Thors Well and all sorts of fun stuff. And also, I'm in the area of tide pools, but right now the water's all foamy. A storm had come through and churned the water up, so it ends up all foamed up here. But at a low tide condition, you can see over there, there's actually there's some pretty nice tide pools. So if you say, hey, we want to check out nudibranches and sea stars and sea anemones and whatever else, the urchins and all that sort of stuff, make sure to check on your phone before you leave so you have a good data connection. There are tide apps like Tide Alert that you can check out, and the lower the tide, the better. If you can get a negative tide for tide pools, that's the best, because then it's really safe. The water is really far away, so if you're with the spouse and the kids, you don't want to have any tragedies. So you just check to make sure the tide's low, and you can come out. I've seen all sorts of orange and purple sea stars. I found a sea slug, a sea cucumber, I guess it's a lemon thing. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but it looks like this weird foot sort of shape. When you go all up and down the coast, there are, not waterfalls, freaking lighthouses. Yeah, lighthouses. I don't know, I can't remember that. And it's really fun. You can see the action is constant here, but I am watching behind me in the camera and in the screen here, because it does happen where you see that one wave come up, and just like I got blasted and splashed before, you have to be ever vigilant. When the wave's really far out, it's actually pretty good, but boy, if it's anywhere near me, do keep an eye out. And I'll show you what the landscape looks right here. And you can see, I'm kind of blinded at the moment, but you can see the landscape behind me. It's a little bit misty from that sea spray, but it's actually really good for your health. Those ions that are generated by the water. It's just that nice little white noise roar. It's quite an experience here. Now the neat thing about these coastal walks, we have these trails, are all the seagrasses and everything that can actually handle the salt spray in those conditions. Not every plant or tree can handle that amount of salt, so you have these neat little grasses here and everything, and just adds to the beauty of the situation. Plus, and everything is covering this wonderful mossy green. It's just an ultra green here, but of course you say, oh, that's beautiful. You have to remember, it rains like crazy here, 60 to 80, 90 inches of rain a year, depending on where you are. And you can see the basaltic conglomerates or the crumbly rock. Do be aware that that is crumbly stuff, and you have to be careful. You stand on these ledges, they can collapse, so it's something to watch for. But it is a fun experience to check these places out and show you what it's like to tour around the Oregon coast. And there are just countless bridges just like this one that go across these tiny little water ravines and everything. It's just this endless little landscape of all sorts of fun stuff to check out and wander around with the family. It's really a pretty fun experience. Hey, check it out. My camera's still wet from the splashing I got, but pretty hilarious, right? I hope you enjoyed that one. I know I did, even though I've got a long drive home with completely soaked pants, but all part of the risks of the job. Now, by the time the tide is at 4.2 feet, the spout has really stopped spouting. You might see a little bit of spritz. Yeah, there you go. So the tide has dropped about a foot since I've shown up here and done filming. So 4.2 feet, it's getting kind of weak. Thors Well over here, where the folks are out on the rocks, it's just starting to open up. So if you want to walk out there, yeah, see it spouted up right there. So at the tide of 4.2 feet, you're still going to get really wet if you go out there. But that's kind of the cut line. So at 5 feet and above, the spout really goes off quite well. Thors Well, it's still churning, but right now, right around 4.2 feet with regular non-storm tide, might actually be a good time for photography, if not a little bit slower, so you can get those neat water wash effects. And these areas right here, little turnoffs, are always sort of interesting on the coastline because this particular spot it's not really marked, but this is where the Spouting Horn and the Thors Well are available. So it's well worth to look on your phone and check things out, because you never know what you're driving past that you might not miss. But if there are a pile of cars, chances are something's happening. The turnoff for this Thors Well and Spouting Horn is Cook's Chasm. The chasm is just this chasm that actually, let me hop over the fence here, guardrail, and I'll show you. But this Cook area is actually interesting because apparently Captain James Cook actually made it into this area. But you can see behind me here, this chasm gets churned in, and the ocean is cut into this basaltic area a little bit. Looks like there's a little bit of a waterfall-y area. It's actually pretty neat. Sorry for the loud road sound. I don't really have any control over that. But I'm looking over there. Shoot, can't really see over there without standing on the road. So let me flip it around and I'll show you the chasm. I just discovered at the visitor center I'd been pronouncing Yachats wrong. It's actually Yachats. The C is silent, but if you stop by the visitor center, they can provide you a bunch of information. It's just a very short drive away from the Thors Well and Cook's little area there, and then you can check out things like a blue whale skull. That's a neat part about this, is you can see these sort of things. I don't know, I'm supposed to touch them, but it doesn't say do not touch. It's really neat, and you can see the visitor center has really got a commanding view. There we go. The ocean's actually quite spectacular. So definitely pop into the visitor center, talk to the staff here, and learn a bunch of things. There's a 500-year-old Sitka spruce on a 2-mile loop trail. I mean, just all sorts of neat stuff to check out as you're cruising along the northern Oregon coast. My name is Linsdau. I'm a polar explorer and professional adventurer. Please like and comment on the video and subscribe to my channel to support it. Thank you.